Well, I think that brands are increasingly concerned with demonstrating to consumers in the world of social media that they live up to the values that they speak about in advertising. And I think connecting with content is a very good way of telling stories, developing narratives, and often putting the consumer in a position of some power in that relationship. So that's where branded content has come from. Control. Well, control's really about adding value. So, for instance, the BBC News Service would never consider doing any branded content because the BBC News Service has to stand aloof, be entirely independent. All our brand values about a complete impartiality, and the freedom to say what we feel needs to be said rather than any commercial relationship. But control is also about editorial control, in the sense that unless that content is actually adding value to the consumer, it's of little use. That's why I was talking about augmented content, the advertiser bringing something extra to it, or the added value example. The added value example I gave was Heineken with their Champions League sponsorship, their online work through their iPhone app, where you can play a game during the course of the match and actually share it with your friends. That's fantastic for Heineken. It brings more attention for Heineken in a competitive sponsorship situation with other sponsors, and it also enables the users to stay very engaged and to do something additional in their relationship. So control is important, and I think that sophisticated marketeers have learnt that they shouldn't interfere with content and just try and produce something which is in favour of, the example I gave, the joke example is, an interview with the CEO, may be very good internally, but it's not necessarily adding value to the end user. That's where the editorial part works.
So basically brands need to learn when there's a need to relinquish control and hand it over to the...
Well, I think that we're talking partnership here. Branded content only works if the media owner's objectives align with those of the brand. And so would the piece of work created actually work for both parties? I think that they want a relatively de-risked environment, and I think pure viral and setting things loose on the web is a relatively high-risk strategy, which works in some instances, but also doesn't necessarily guarantee the reach or guarantee a sense of integrity. I think connecting high-quality content to distribution where you are adding value to the end consumer is a brilliant way of marketing, and it's incredibly popular now, increasingly popular, because I think that in today's world where consumers can comment back on anything that a brand is doing, it enables that brand to put their money where their mouth was, as it were, speak to the values. And so the Shell example I gave you, it's become interwoven into the fabric of Shell over a period of 6 or 7 years. This is one of the things they do every year, and it means a lot to them, and it obviously makes sense to the consumers as well.